Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Unique Peace. Today, I am excited to have Cassandra Vitale joining us. She is a relationship coach. She's a yoga master. She does a lot of things with psychedelic medicines. So I am very excited to hear what brings her peace. Welcome, Cassandra.
Hi, how are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm great. It's a beautiful, slightly gray morning here in Buffalo, New York. So
Okay. So
enjoying the snow hasn't.
enjoying it.
Uh-huh. No snow yet, so we're happy.
Hey, and it's a little chilly. It's starting to cool off. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm a summer person.
Me too.
No. Now, you have an interesting background. You're kind of like pulling from lots of different places in life on how to find peace.
Yep.
So, I would like to know how you got to where you are and what prompted that.
Well, I think a lot of what shaped who I am is that I went to Catholic school. um, and growing up in Catholicism and going to church and be having an Irish Catholic mother and a very reluctant Italian Catholic father. My dad didn't want to go to church, and he sort of got away with not going to church because he had his uh, issues with the church, that same issues that I think most people who have issues with the church have. But um, I I was sort of thrust into the religion and thrust into the belief system, and it never really made sense to me. I always thought to myself, like, well, if God is everywhere and everything, then why aren't we God? I remember thinking that, like, as an 8-year-old kid, like sitting in church looking up at the altar, watching the priest do his weird stuff. And at the same time, over the years, sort of deconstructing my relationship with that, getting into yoga, getting into Eastern philosophy, finding a lot of spirituality through experimentation with psychedelics, I recognized how peaceful church can actually be, and mass and ritual, and
Hmm.
going into a quiet, beautiful place that smells vaguely of frankincense and beautiful stained glass windows, and prayer.
Yeah, prayer is
So
powerful.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think just sort of having been indoctrinated into one thing, I've found, both by leaving it and then sort of reconnecting to it in other ways, finding prayer, finding ritual, finding solace in these quiet meditative moments and practices. And
That's
yeah, and basically in sort of just finding the ones that I like and using those and getting rid of the stuff that I don't like. Very American.
Yeah, it's very American, but as I've had several teachers, actually, professors, as I was getting my master's, say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. Exactly.
And there's a lot to be said. I've been like my mom has her I know my mom has her issues with the church, not with God, but with the church.
Mhm.
And so she did, her motherly duty of we all got confirmed. It's like, okay, I've done it. Do what you want with it. I did my part. She never enforced or forced. I mean, I was the one who kind of like, there was a very strong period in my time that in life where I relied on that faith and that structure and ritual, as you said, to get
Sure.
through parts.
Yeah.
I noticed with my own son, he was like, I don't know if I believe in God. I believe in a higher power, but I don't know if I believe in God. And it's like, okay, once you're confirmed, I will never force you to go to church again. And I have lived up to my end of the bargain. Here we are 3 years later. We're good. So I believe that that's a good way of going. And plus, when you force something on someone, they're going to end up resenting you or resenting it.
At some point, yeah. I mean, I think there are some people who the fear is enough to sort of keep them in that place for a long time, and some people would rather feel safe following along because of the punishments that are sort of being threatened. But in general, yeah, I think it builds up a lot of tension inside.
Yes, it does. And I just want to acknowledge Sharon. Good morning, Sharon. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Karen.
And with the indoctrination and then drifting away and then kind of melding of the two, how do you now define peace for yourself?
That's a good question. I define peace as feeling internally at rest. I think that's like the easiest way to put it, the simplest way to put it, where my inside is just as relaxed. Well, my inside is relaxed. Actually, it doesn't really matter what's going on outside. It doesn't matter what's going outside of me, although that's ideal to have the outside be also relaxed. But feeling energetically, emotionally, and mentally at rest. And by rest, I mean calm, chill, um, feeling unbothered.
Beautiful. And in doing that and getting yourself into that state, how do you find those moments of internal rest?
I mean, yoga for me is like one of the biggest ways as far as finding it. It's definitely the way to the way. Um, I've been practicing yoga for 15 years, almost 16 years, and it's a practice that I always come back to. I was an instructor for a really long time. I just quit teaching actually last year, and then taught for the first time at a yoga retreat just a couple of weeks ago. Or at a wasn't really a yoga retreat; it was a transformational retreat. But the practice is so powerful. I can do it for 5 minutes. I can do a child's pose. I can take some deep breaths, or my hour long 4 or 5 days a week going to the studio and being immersed in whatever the teacher's offering that day. It changes me. It changes me. It really takes me out of my chitter chatter inside my brain. It relaxes my body in ways that I can't do any other way. The stretching, the breath, the contortions, the focus, and being in the community is a big part of it for me too, like feeling connected to other people. So going to the studio, I used to own a yoga studio, having a group of like-minded people around me who are both acknowledging that sometimes we suffer and then doing something about it brings
Hmm.
me brings me peace.
Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. And going to the community, you
Mhm.
are a relationship coach, and I know
Yes.
that you focus primarily on women in their
Yes.
relationships.
Mhm.
So, as women, how important do you find finding that inner peace for your relationships? Whether it be
I
friendship, romantic.
Yeah. I I mean, I think that having peace in relationships is both the goal and also the means in some ways. I talk to a lot of people who have more rupture than repair in their relationships. Things go wrong more than they go right, or they're feeling bad more than they're feeling good. And I mean, there's a lot of research. I think Gottman is such a cool institute. Has done research to show that who you choose as your partner it's like one of the most important decisions that you'll make in your entire life. And it affects our physical health, mental, emotional, it affects us in all areas, financial. Um, and so, I mean, having both tools to come back to harmony and having a partner that you're not constantly fighting with or having conflict with all the time. And it's normal to have conflict. It's normal to have disagreements. It's normal to have misunderstandings. But having that be 80% of the time and then the good stuff is only 20%, that is I mean, that's what makes people have a bad time in life, and it affects our ability to feel safe, and it affects our ability to achieve goals and make money and, you know, have our hearts work properly. I mean, like,
Yeah.
people in bad marriages have more health problems.
Yeah.
We have data on that. Like, so, um, I mean, it's kind of everything. The people who are around us and how they make us feel and how we make them feel is, I mean, we're social creatures, and that's like the human experience.
It is. It absolutely is. And I've noticed um, my mom has been married 3 times. Um, and sharing this, I don't mean to give too much about the familiar, but it wasn't until like she lost my dad. My mom was a widow at a very young age. And
Okay.
then the second marriage was just very stressful. But when you said there's so much, there's a more rupture than peace. And I think the third time they found a way to get it right.
And
So
third time's a charm, like they say.
so in observing that, and I'm sure you've observed that in some level in your profession, what do you think the key is? Is it the two people coming together to find peace, or is it the two people finding peace and coming together?
I think it's both. I think we as individuals have to have the intention to be personally accountable and responsible for our own inner world and for our own experience of life. So that would be practicing regulation for ourselves, self-reflection, yoga, breathing, therapy, anything that will help us come back to ourselves to find that peace within and the congruence, the integrity, that so that we can feel okay with who we are as a person. And then, most of the time, and then having those two people who are doing that work on their own coming together, and things were going to, regardless of how healed you are or whatever, or enlightened you are, your stuff is going to rub up against someone else's. That's just how life is. And we don't live in a, it would be great if we could just live in our own little bubble, right? I think we'd all be pretty lonely if that if we were trying to do that.
Yes, I have to interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah,
I'll
go.
be right back.
No worries. Got somebody at the door.
My apologies. My father-in-law forgot his keys.
No worries. It happens. Yeah. We're not living in a bubble. We have our family and community around us.
And as you know, or you may not know, I am divorced, but I love my in-laws dearly. So it works better.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's good. It sounds like you have a healthy relationship with your ex. It sounds like, or at least
I
that's
have a
really
healthy relationship with his family.
okay. Fantastic. I love that.
Yes, so we'll
Um,
go there.
that's that's community. What was I saying? Oh, okay. So then we're coming together as individuals to create our partnership and to do life together, walking side by side. And inevitably, we're going to have things come up. And we really can't heal our relationship wounds and problems and fixations by ourselves. Ultimately, we can do a lot on our own. But there are things that are going to come up in that context that wouldn't come up otherwise that we'll have to work on together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in the coming together, how do you bring peace to others? How do you, whether it's personally, professionally, combination of the two, how do you bring peace to others? How do you feel that happens?
Um, I have been told that I am a very comforting presence. Um, I think people. I'm the oldest sister. I'm the oldest daughter, so
Here.
I yeah, I have that kind of maternal energy, So I think in general, I both kind of seem like I'm in charge of stuff, which helps people feel safe. I don't have a problem taking charge or taking the lead on things when things go haywire. And I think that helps people feel safe. I am a big fan of compassion, being kind with people, seeing them as they are and meeting them where they're at, being listening, being curious rather than judgmental, um, being Socratic. When someone comes to me with something that they want to talk about, I I have a lot of advice, and I could tell everybody what to do with their lives, of course, and I think I'm right. But I would rather reflect back to them what they're saying to me and ask them questions that might support them in coming to a conclusion that's going to help their lives rather than just telling them what to do. And sometimes people say, "Tell me what to do," right? A lot of the time they don't listen anyway, but they'll finding a
It's the
way to
truth. No, it's the truth.
I give me advice. I'm still not gonna listen to it, even though I'm telling you to do that. But um being myself so freely that other people feel comfortable being themselves in my presence. And then I have tons of tools. I mean, we can breathe, we can do tapping. I can break it down for you based on your Enneagram or whatever. Like we can get heady with it because sometimes that helps people at least connect the dots.
Right.
But but I mean, in general, it's like peace, love, understanding, compassion. And once in a while, a little bit of shit talking. Sometimes we gotta shit talk a little bit first before we can get to the.
Yes.
So accepting our light and our dark and our humanity.
Yes. Absolutely. I agree with that. You have to accept the light and the dark. And sometimes that's hard because I don't know, this is just my thoughts on it, is I don't subscribe to toxic positivity. You're going to
Um,
have a bad day, and I am not going to always tell you. I'm going to encourage you, hey, let's try and flip it. But
right.
if you're going to have a bad day and you need to just have that bad day, I'll
Mhm,
be here.
mhm,
We can't dwell in that bad day. We can't dwell in that bad environment.
yeah,
But I'm not going to be like, you got to flip it. You got to be happy. You got to see the positive. Because I have learned that at a very low point in life, very suicidal in life, that toxic positivity almost killed me because I couldn't keep it up here.
yeah,
And and then on the flip side, I accidentally, and it was totally not intentional. I didn't realize it for a couple years, but I accidentally became toxic positive. Flipped it and then was like, wait, that's not helping anybody.
right. Yeah. I mean, I also do not subscribe to toxic positivity, and having been in the Southern California yoga spiritual world for such a long time, almost sort of seeing the rise of like spiritual culture in a lot of ways over the past 15 years. When I first started yoga, a lot of people still hadn't heard about it, right? And now pretty
Mhm.
much everyone's heard of yoga, even if they haven't done it, right? So it just like kind of seeing that cultural shift. Um, I I believe that toxic positivity is part of the spiritual path, but it's a place where some people get stuck.
Yeah.
Where because going from seeing the negative in everything and fixating on that negativity bias that we have, I think lots of people recognize that doesn't work for your life. And so they swing the pendulum super far. And just like you, I've seen it in myself. I've done the same thing. Like the pendulum was over here and I wanted to tell people, no, let's just find the silver lining. Let's immediately try to tell ourselves that it's okay, right? Eventually, ideally, the pendulum kind of can like do that. and
Yeah.
we can get into the middle where where we're able to recognize and hold opposing ideas without them contradicting each other, like the paradox, right? Like, I had a bad day and that really sucks and I'm sad, and I'm not having a bad life. Everything's not always bad all the time. I'm not going to continue having a bad time forever, right? Like, okay, I had a bad day, this sucks, or something, I'm going through something that I need to process, I need to grieve, I'm in a depression, there's something for me to like figure out. And also, it's possible to have a new experience at some point. It's possible to turn it around. It's when I feel better, once I've been like comforted and nurtured and even self-validating, like saying like, it's okay, even though I'm sad, I still love myself, or whatever.
Right. Right. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it takes some time to get to that balance swinging pendulum at times. And
Oh,
I love that analogy. I'm going to steal that analogy.
yeah.
Now, I want to bring up something fun.
Okay, great.
Um, because I'm very in tune with the Myers-Briggs
Oh, yeah,
personality. I love it. And
great.
I love it in a sense where I've learned a lot about myself through it. And I've taken several different ones and it all comes back. So I know what I am.
Okay.
Now, I'm an INFJ.
Okay, I believe it.
And my sister says, yeah, I believe it too, because she read the description. She says, yeah, it takes 5 people to make one Janet. So it's like, okay. And looking at that, looking at that different spectrum, can you easily help someone find peace based on their personality type?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I didn't even
Okay.
mention it. I guess I did a little bit with the Enneagram, but, I'm an ENFJ. So that you're the counselor archetype, I'm the teacher archetype, right? So that's like, I just automatically start going into my little teaching. So sometimes I come to, I'm talking to a friend. I have a lot of friends who have the N letter, right? NFs and NTs.
Mm-hmm.
Like Michael is an NT. He's an ENTP, right?
He's an ENTP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's what I thought.
It's my other half, I'm aware.
Yeah. You guys have a first tier compatibility. So like ENTPs and INFJs get along super well. So that makes sense that you guys have such a great connection. So I will do my best to type. I've been studying it since about 2012. So it's been a while that I've been studying Myers-Briggs. I've been in part of communities and things, and my ex-husband is amazing at it, super good at it. So I learned a ton from him. But if I can type the person fairly well, even just on their temperament, like, are you an SP? Are you an NF? Are you whatever? So a lot of the time talking to NFs and NTs when they're dealing with especially the SJ type, this is very jargony, but you have your traditionalists versus your future thinkers, right? So a lot of the time that is at odds. So if I'm talking to a future thinker and they're having a conflict with a traditionalist, even just talking about that and saying this person is a traditionalist, they're looking to the past to see what has worked before. And you're trying to innovate and come up with a new way of doing something to solve the problem. They want to solve the problem the way that it's been solved before. So they're not going to want to adopt your new thing that has never been tested, even though you, because of the way you think, you can extrapolate and see how it's going to work and how it's going to be better than any other way that's ever happened before. So even saying that to somebody like helps them see like why the person won't get on their level or won't agree with them, or how to maybe come up with a way to sell them their idea. Or it's like sometimes you have to collect some data on your idea before you and present it to this person who won't just take your word for it, right?
Right.
So And then there's like the SPs who are more present moment. They're the ones that you say, can we make plans for 6 months in advance? And they're like, whoa, I'm definitely not going to do that. Because they're still in the moment, right? So I think that helping people understand that the conflicts that they're having with people aren't just due to the fact that this person's trying to be a butthead to them, you know? It's like we have different worldviews and we have different ways of seeing things, and it's less about them trying to be disagreeable, and it's more about we've got to figure out how to speak their language.
Yes, like love languages.
Mhm.
It's very similar, and yeah, I've asked spirit more than once, how do I how do I speak their language? How do I, especially with my son, how do I talk to get through to him? Because I'm clearly way over here and he's way over here, and we need to balance it out. So that is key. That is
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, we usually want to speak our world to other people, and sometimes that works, and that's great. When our world and someone else's world, we can just speak our world and someone's like, I get it, I'm vibing with this, right? I'm resonating. That feels amazing.
It
Like, yay,
does.
I don't have to translate. I can just be me and you get me. um those are our best buds, right? Those are our partners, those are our friends, those are the people that we like have that instant connection with. But our coworkers, our parents, our siblings, there's tons of other people all around us that we're gonna have to meet them where they're at and translate our world a little bit for them.
Right. And that's not always easy. It's so not always easy.
No.
And with Thanksgiving coming up in just a few short days, holy crap, how did that happen? Um, and we're going to have to do a lot of translating, just trying to stay very calm, depending on if you're hanging out with family, friends, getting through, that coworker office lunch
Mhm.
or what have you. Um, what's in your toolbox? I love to ask, when you put yourself in those dynamics and you reflect on that, what's the fastest way you pull somebody away? It's like, Uncle Joe, we got to talk. You're stressing people out. How do you pull them back and just like be
God,
peaceful?
this is like a whole can of worms right here. I I mean, in some situations, I would say saying less and listening more is not a bad plan. Being more curious than righteous. Those are practices. Those are things to keep in mind. Sometimes it's safer to only is to wear a mask. Some with family. Sometimes it's safer to not share every single opinion that we have about every single thing. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. We don't want to do that in every aspect of our lives, and we want to have people around us that we can be our whole authentic self with. And sometimes it's safer to not share every single thing with every single person. So discernment on what makes sense to share and when it makes sense to have that political argument or insist on this certain point of view or whatever, right? Like, no, we don't have to tolerate abuse, and we shouldn't. No, having boundaries is a great idea, and if it feels better to remove oneself and go take a walk and go take a break, then great. um a tool that can happen both before going to visit family or any situation where you're going to get triggered. Tapping. Do a tapping session. um you can do that yourself. There are tons of videos online, like maybe for anxiety or for being extra sensitive and getting feelings hurt easily or feeling misunderstood all the time. Things that trigger you. You can also tap while you're with your family. Go to the bathroom, do a little tapping session just to calm yourself and relax yourself if people are being a certain kind of way that doesn't feel nice. Opting out, that's another option. Um, And then I would say one of the other ones that I offer people, it's easier said than done, is temper expectations. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is if you know someone has been a certain kind of way, and this is how they always are, let go of the idea that they're going to this time be someone else or be different.
Yeah.
And
Hard for
let
a lot of people.
it's super hard because then they're going to say the thing that's like, you know, I hate that they're homophobic. I hate that they say these things or whatever. And sure, in some instances, it might make sense to pull them aside and say, hey, can we talk more about this? You know, maybe not across the dinner table while everyone's trying to eat their food, right? But if it's really something that you feel justice needs to be served or you have a righteous indignation about, then great. Like consider having that challenging conversation and like be ready to listen. But in some instances, either don't go because the people are terrible, or expect them to be how they always are, and kind of do whatever you need to do to regulate yourself
Right.
and get through it. Have your turkey, whatever. Hang out with the family member that you do like.
Right. Right. And those are all important. And I actually, there's a couple people in my life who have no filter, and I know this. So I warn people
Yeah.
before bringing them into my little circle. It's like, this is my stepdad. He has no filter. He's going to say stuff, and that's who he is. They're warned. How they react is how they react. But I've done my due diligence in saying, this is Bob. This is what you can anticipate. I set expectations with my family dynamic.
Sure. I mean, that's helpful. I think in an ideal world, and I think this is a millennial mindset kind of thing, is like we would have an important conversation with every single person that we think is not aligned with our views on human rights or whatever. And in an ideal world, that would work. And we don't live in that world, I don't think yet. So we have to employ other ways of just at least like having our own inner peace and like letting people kind of like do their thing.
Exactly. And like you said, you can remove yourself. You don't have to go.
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
have to go. And if you feel that pressure, it's kind of like a check-in. You have to check in, and it's like, these events don't usually end well, so I got to do me. It's like, make up a story. It's like,
Only go for like an hour. Show up, show up before dinner's gonna happen, eat dinner, give everyone hugs, and then get out. Like there's lots of ways to do it. Someone might say, oh, well, you're just showing up, let people make their comments. Like it. And I think what I'm saying, to put an umbrella over all of this, is practicing emotional fortitude, creating
yes,
our own little fort within ourselves that is we can feel however we want to feel. We also don't have to let it ruin everything. We don't have to give our power away so much that we're miserable.
right. And that comes to boundaries, and
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to be. Now, here's another one quickly before we push forward. I have experienced recently um, boundaries being pushed, and I pushed back. And I mean, I used to have not the strongest of boundaries, and it wasn't so much people pleasing. Part of it was, but I just didn't have the strongest of boundaries because I tend to be a nice person. So yes,
Sure.
there's a lot of people pleasing, but these are people I care about. These are people I love. These are people that I'm trying to help. Sometimes I push their boundaries because I want to help.
Okay.
I acknowledge that. But when
Okay.
I witness people pushing boundaries and I want to help the other person, the person whose boundaries are being pushed, how do you kind of find ways to be at peace with that is their boundary that they're allowing someone to walk on?
Okay, so I think what you're talking about is that protective instinct,
Yeah.
um, the desire to stand in the middle of something, or I mean, in certain instances, it really depends. Like, if it's a little kid whose boundaries are being pushed, I have no problem whatsoever saying to any adult, leave them alone. Like, I'll be that person. I'll be like, hey, knock it off. Um, in instances where I'm sitting, if it's at the dinner table or something with family members, and even between adults, if somebody's really having a hard time advocating for themselves, I may just like shut it down and be, take some of the backlash, right? Uh, those are like kind of specific situations where it's happening right in front of you, but sometimes the best thing that we can do is remind ourselves that everybody has their own path and their own journey, and if they want the help, they'll ask for it. And it's possible that this thing happening to them, I mean, I don't ever think abuse is a gift, so I'm definitely not saying that. And also sometimes having a boundary cross is the way we learn we even had a boundary in the first place. So
Yes.
it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that that was a rule that I have for me that this person broke. They didn't know, because I didn't know it was even my rule. And so then the opportunity is to both acknowledge our own needs and then next time around say something.
I have a good hypothetical because I'm in the middle of it. So it's not, it's hypothetical, but it's not.
Okay.
And it's the person who will not respect the boundaries. Now, again, I have a very good friend, and mom-in-law is always right.
Oh,
And she's very pushy and line in the sand. I'm going to walk over it, line in the sand without, pushing, both literally and figuratively. What's a way that we can all take? Because this is going to be an environment where this person is going to be up close and personal and in your face.
mhm.
And it always makes the holidays stressful. Again, blessed enough to where I would, yes, I'm like, or I just remind them, I don't eat mushrooms. Please stop. And I mean, it took a few years, but nobody offers me mushrooms anymore. Thank you. But it was just, I can politely say, no, I don't eat mushrooms. And just, I mean, they couldn't understand why. I mean, it's, to me, it's psychological and textural, but they finally stopped offering me mushrooms.
Sure.
Now, my friend is in this situation where it's the line doesn't exist for the other person, even though the line has been drawn and said many times.
Got it. Um, and I'm like, is there? I might need more information. I mean, and this person doesn't want to stop contact. This person wants to continue to.
It's her mother-in-law, so and there's kids involved, and if she had her druthers, she would she has no problem saying a lot of words and leaving, but there are kids involved. So
I mean,
keeping the peace and keeping boundaries is something we're all going to have to do. We've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, we've got New Year's, we've got Hanukkah, we got it all coming.
right. Is the dad, so it's his mother.
Yep.
Is he willing to say something to his mom? Because I would say that that would be the conversation that needs to be had, which is it needs to be, hey, can you please help me deal with your mom? And it's not like choosing her over me, although I firmly believe that men, in order to become a man, do need to choose their wife over their mother. I believe that,
And
and
that's the
I
choice,
will,
I guess. I guess
I will
that's the
die on that hill. I will. And no, we're not going to hurt mom. We're not going to be mean to her. We're not going to disparage her. We're not going to berate her, right? And we are also going to request and in a way demand that she behave like an adult. in order to receive adult privileges, right? And so dad is really going to have to, or son is going to have to find a way to get through to his mom. That's what I would say. It has to be the solution. And if that's not happening, then I don't know. I mean, I think that she's going to probably have to make a scene maybe once or twice. Like you might have to just like blow up and say, hey, like this doesn't work, you know. And maybe the kids will have to see it, or maybe it'll be behind closed doors or something like that. But like sometimes having a big reaction is the only way to get through to people.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I never thought of it that way. But
Because some people will listen.
I will take a step back and say I did do that once, a
Oh
couple
yeah.
years. I did. I felt I wasn't being heard. I had been polite about it several times, and it just reached a point to where subtlety wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
Then directness was met with dismiss,
Yes.
and dismiss was met with my Mount Vesuvius, which is my personality is I'm very long string, but once it hits that powder keg, watch out.
Yeah. And that's what
Uh,
happens.
and so I can see it and it wasn't like in front of people, but it was thought provoking for the other person.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people don't take it seriously unless they're getting yelled at, and sometimes people need to get yelled at. I mean, the idea that like someone can constantly break a boundary, break a boundary, break a boundary, and then the second that the person blows up, all of a sudden that's abusive. It's like, no, that's a reasonable response to not having been listened to all the 100 times before. I mean, that's what happens to animals. If you don't take their cues, they will attack. And
Mhm.
that's no one says, "Oh, well, the animal," you know, I mean, sure, like we might put a dog down for biting or something like that if it's unprovoked, but not if it's been provoked a bunch of times. We say, "Why did
Right,
you provoke the dog?"
right.
We're the same in a lot of ways. I mean, we're gonna figure out how to protect ourselves.
And that brings us peace. That inner protection, feeling safe, like you said.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, there's got to be like a really big talk between um, wife and husband about mother-in-law and how to navigate lovingly son and mom, like having a conversation about he's got to protect her. Like that, to me, that's like part of what a husband is supposed to do. And also the children. If there's kids involved, then like we can't have an adult who isn't really safe for other adults. If they're not safe for adults, then what are they doing with the kids? I don't,
Right, right.
and
I
I think a
love.
lot of, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I am definitely on the side of TikTok where mother-in-laws are getting a lot of shit from millennial moms, especially like boomers versus millennials. This is a fun algorithm hit, but um we don't have to, we're not making this woman into a villain, right? She's not a villain. She's probably well-meaning. And she's also sounds like emotionally immature and needs a lot of support to buy into this other way of doing things.
Yeah, you're probably very right. You're probably very right. And like I said, it feels like a ticking time bomb for the other person.
Well,
And
and that's something that in my opinion the son needs to clue into.
he's aware. He's very aware. He's
Well,
so aware. It's not even funny.
if he doesn't want his wife to blow up on his mom, he could probably get in the middle of it a little more. I mean, that's my That's my opinion. But I watch a lot of parenting videos because it helps a ton with gentle parenting videos. It helps a lot with my coaching, believe it or not. I'm not talking to people like their children. And a lot of the techniques, rather than saying, don't do this, tell them what to do, right? As an example, we call it positive opposites. Instead of don't jump on the bed, you say feet stay on the floor. That kind of stuff actually works with adults too.
I'll have
So
to do that.
the mother-in-law, she's having like a tantrum kind of. And so she probably needs a lot of connection, a lot of compassion, a lot of um what do they call it? Concentrated attention so that she stops acting out.
All good stuff. All good stuff that we have. So we thank you for your coaching experience and your insight there. Thank you.
Good luck.
Well, it's not me personally, so that's good.
Good luck out to the ethers for everyone.
Uh, yes. So, that being in our toolbox in many ways to deal with family and the coworkers and those who are trying to push buttons, because it's the holidays. So we thank you for that toolbox trick. What else is there that you can advise people on, maybe finding ways to find peace and bring peace into their lives and the lives of those around them?
Well, I like to say go back to the basics. When I first start working with somebody or even friends who are feeling unpeaceful, I like to ask, how's your sleep? Sleep is one of the biggest emotional regulators. Is one of the biggest things that we have to help us feel okay during the day. There's a lot of reasons why someone wouldn't be sleeping well, and there's also a lot of things that we can do to make our experience better. So sleep, I would say, is one of the biggest ones. Like, check your sleep. Are you sleeping? Do you have a bedtime routine that allows you to feel relaxed before bed so that you can actually sleep well? Do you need to cut back on your caffeine? Do you need to go to bed earlier? Whatever, do you need to make it dark in your bedroom a couple hours? Stop looking at your phone. So sleep is number one, because that is like our number one mental health tool. After sleep, it's how's your food? How's your eating? Go back to the basics. Like, are we eating a balanced diet? Whatever that looks like for you. I'm certainly not going to give people extensive nutrition advice, but because I think we're all different and we all need different things. But in general, are we eating in a balanced way that's nourishing our bodies? Number 3 is exercise, movement, walks, yoga, weightlifting, gym, anything, gardening, disc golf, anything that lights you up and that you enjoy doing. Are you doing some sort of movement? I think that there are people who are in the throes of depression who get really hurt by the suggestion that they should consider stepping outside of their house and taking a walk. And I can see how that would feel really dismissive. And also, studies show that going outside and getting some sunshine and moving your body around and getting outside of your little world makes people feel better.
Yes, absolutely. Need that vitamin, need that light, that UV light.
Yeah.
In some respects it's bad, but in a lot of ways it's good.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, 10 minutes. Morning light is great for you. Your circadian rhythm goes back to sleep again. Wake up in the morning. Don't look at your phone first. Look at the sky first. Movement. So, I mean, those are like the basic take care of yourself, self-care things, like bare minimum. And a lot of us are not doing that well. And then a lot of us feel bad.
Yep.
Yeah, and if we don't feel good, then it's very hard to take it one step higher and feel peaceful. So I would say go back to the basics, check in on all of those important things, and then after that, it's Are you do you feel safe at home? You know, is your home experience safe? The people you live with, your partner, your roommates, your family members, do you feel like you have to just make a beeline for your bedroom and lock yourself in there? Or are you able to enjoy your home? That affects our mental wellness and our mental health. And do we feel peaceful? Because our home is supposed to be our recharge place. And if you're on high alert and in a heightened, hyper aroused state, when you're at home, where can you get it?
Exactly.
So, I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? This is like basic stuff. But for whatever reason, we often overlook it when we're trying to feel peaceful, and we're sort of missing a lot of the blocks that we need to build that little tower of peace.
Beautiful.
And then
No,
after that, we can like, do we enjoy our work? Is our work satisfying to us? Do we have a community that we feel connected to and safe in? Are we doing something that is for the world? Or, do we have a higher purpose? And then sure, there's other rituals and different things that we can do: yoga, meditation, prayer, magic, Reiki. There's a million modalities.
there absolutely is. And I love so many of them.
Me too.
So thank you, Cassandra. I appreciate you coming on and talking peace, giving us some relationship advice, and enjoying this Sunday morning with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yes, and we'll have you on again. I think there's so much more to unpack when it comes to relationships and peace on so many levels.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we sort of talked basics, but for the people who have the basics down, like we could really like launch and end up in somewhere cool in outer space and talking to an alien or something if we want. But
Absolutely.
there's so much more available to us.
So, all right. Have a wonderful day. And I'm going to put Cassandra in the back for a moment. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next week.